The ZA Tech Show is made possible by Snapdragon, the all-in-one mobile processor. To win a tablet or smartphone, visit www.zatechshow.co.za/Snapdragon. And by Sharp. Check out the amazing new Sharp Interactive LED at www.sharpinteractive.co.za.
Good evening and welcome to the ZA Tech Show, episode number 218 for Monday, 23rd July. My name is Simon Dingle. Good to be with you. As per usual, or not so per usual of late, Brett Haggard was in last week. But you know, you get my drift. Sometimes I host my own show. It happens. It's Brett's show too, so whatever. I don't know where this is going. So let me introduce our guests for this evening. Our esteemed panel of technology pundits who will join me in a conversation about the week's tech happenings, or the months, or the years, or maybe stuff from really long ago. We just never know with this show. Arthur Goldstuck is here from Worldwide Works. Hello, Arthur.
Hello, Simon.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
You'd be even better if you're speaking to the mic. Your voice would sound even nicer.
Now I'm doing even better. Even
there
nicer.
He is.
And
Hello,
how are you,
Arthur.
Simon?
I'm always good, man. I'm good.
I know.
What's there to hate? I'm in Joburg. It's Monday night. It's freezing cold outside.
The pace of technology change accelerates all the time.
There you go.
It's not too late.
Exactly. Nothing to complain about. At Art2G on Twitter. Go and check him out. At Benedict Kelly on Twitter is also here.
Hello, Simon.
Hello, Ben. Ben being from the Mail and Guardian and elsewhere. Ungeeked.co.za.
Yeah, the least updated blog.
I think we started talking about the fact that you had that domain 3 years ago, and
Yes.
since then it's been updated.
Like 4 times.
But anyway, we'll carry on clanging that bell.
Yeah, I may write something in the near future.
All right. What should we start with this evening, gentlemen? We can talk about how much I love Jelly Bean, or how much I love the MacBook Pro with Retina Display, or how much I love the both of you.
We can start on that one.
What would you talk? Which department of love would you like to embark on? That makes no sense. We can also talk about Research in Motion. I had an interview with their new head of marketing this week, which is quite interesting. And they've got BlackBerry Jam coming up, so we can talk about that. Geez, there's so much to talk about. We can talk about Marissa Mayer.
Yeah.
We can talk about whether or not Yahoo has a future. Man, we can check out any one of the 15 gadgets Arthur Goldstuck brought with him this evening.
Take your pick.
We can talk about Canon finally launching a mirrorless digital SLR.
Yes, we can talk about that. But let's first roll through all of the gadgets Arthur has in front of him. I just want to know what they are. So let's see what I can see: a Samsung Galaxy S3. Second generation BlackBerry Bold. What are they called?
Torch.
Sorry, Torch. That's right. I get confused. The budget ZTE phone that you can pick up for between 50 and 80 rand at retailers in South Africa. Another BlackBerry that I don't recognize.
Looks like Bold 9900.
No, definitely not.
No.
Is it the new Curve?
Try again. It's the new Curve 9320,
Aha.
Okay.
Gotcha.
which I brought in for a very specific reason, not
To
because it's the
BBM
new
someone.
Curve.
That's what you do on BlackBerry, right? You BBM.
Yeah, but you've got to set up your BBM. And unfortunately, the way BlackBerry works, if you have it working on one machine and everyone knows you on that machine or on
Yeah,
that
on your PIN.
number,
Yeah.
and then you have another BlackBerry, you've
Unless
got
it's
to
a
have a new PIN
playbook.
number and re-invite people. So
Yeah.
it becomes a bit messy if you have duplicate BlackBerries.
True.
But then again, you get BBM with the most gorgeous smileys or emoticons for the technically inclined.
I don't
in the
know.
world.
Hey, emoji on iOS. Plus, I think Android speaks emoji now too. Might be wrong. Anyway.
Nothing as expressive as the BlackBerry smiley.
Okay, that's half of the things he brought in.
And then I see. I see 3 tablets. You can tell us more about those because I don't
I'll
know.
tell you about them later
All right.
when we come to our picks of the week.
Just name them.
Okay, this is officially it's the Samsung Slate
Okay.
PC,
Running
allegedly
Windows.
a PC.
It's a
But
Series 7. It was Series
Correct.
6. It's not a Series 7 Slate.
It's a Series 7 Slate
Yeah.
Okay.
released earlier this year in South Africa.
Which version
but
of Windows?
Released with Windows 7 earlier this year. Microsoft have now, to demonstrate the capabilities of Windows 8 tablets, they put Windows 8 on this device. So in effect, this is a Windows 8 tablet masquerading as a Slate PC.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that in a moment. Here we have, for comparison purposes, that's your traditional Kindle Touch.
Yeah.
And this is the Kobe E
Okay.
from Kalahari.
I wanted to see one of those.
And what's significant about this is that it's the second generation, and I'll talk about that during the show.
Okay, cool.
And why that's significant.
All right. Well, let's kick off with a discussion about. I'm going to go with research in motion to start with, and then we can move on to Marissa Mayer while we're talking about companies tanking.
Is everything? Is RIM about to circle the rim?
Well, I don't know so much. Obviously, if you speak to a research in motion executive, and especially if they're part of the new team that's just been put in at the top of the company, they're not going to tell you that they deckhands on the Titanic.
No.
They're going to sing a happy song, right? And that's what Frank Bullen did when I spoke to him. Now, he's got a track record of note in telecoms. He used to head up, I think it was corporate strategy at the Orange Group, and then he was an exec at the Vodafone Group, and then he worked for Light Squared, which was that LTE operator in the States.
Oh, which got screwed over by the FCC.
Exactly. The regulator basically made their business model illegal, and they declared bankruptcy in May. But that's his track record, and now he's at Research in Motion. And I had an interview with him. You can read more in an article that was in FinWeek magazine, actually the current issue of FinWeek magazine. But he was very upbeat, and I had a long discussion with him. I might actually podcast that. I don't think the recording was too good because it was off of a speakerphone. I tried to get him on Skype, but that wasn't going to happen. So if I can put the whole interview out there, I will. But essentially, he says they're a great company with great products, great prospects. You'd expect him to say all of those, but he makes a bit of sense when he backs up those statements. When he talks about the health of the company, he says they are cash positive, they have no debt, and they've got $2 billion in the bank. So you're like, all right, well, it's not necessarily an indication.
What it means is that it can tide them over until they release BlackBerry 10.
Yeah. And sorry, carry on.
It's essentially their life raft while they're adrift at sea. But I think we have to see the woes of RIM very much in the context of what's happening in the developing world, to their market share, to the demand for their phones. We're going to be announcing the findings of our Mobility 2012 study on Wednesday. And among the fascinating findings is the market share of the various brands. And RIM, let's say, didn't surprise, but that alone is actually great news for them, because the projections, the expectations for them were very high.
Yeah.
And I won't say they've exactly met expectations, but certainly given the woes that they've had, one would have expected far lower numbers. But what's really significant, which we'll talk about on Wednesday, is what the prospects for them look like in the next year and a half.
The argument that the naysayers make, of course, Arthur, is that you can have almost 100% of every emerging market, barring China, and it doesn't help you if you don't have the US and European markes. You're talking about much lower ARPUs and all the rest of it.
It's very true, but Nokia, for example, never had the North American market. They've always been a bit player there. Now they're slumping everywhere. They had Europe, but BlackBerry has certain Europe territories as well. BlackBerry has Spain, Netherlands, United Kingdom even, in terms of smartphone market share. They still have it, but it's flagging, and people are really demanding the next BlackBerry or the next generation of BlackBerries. So BlackBerry's delay to 2013 could prove to be suicidal, but at the same time, you cannot write them off based on the deep penetration and the growing penetration, ironically, in the emerging markets.
And the other thing is that, I mean, if BlackBerry had shipped BlackBerry 10 now, and it had been buggy and incomplete like they did with the playbook,
that would have been
it would have they really might as well have just broken up the company.
So I spoke to Frank Bullen about this and I asked him about the delay, and he said it was a good thing. He said that he would have delayed it if he could have anyway. Once again, that's what you'd expect him to say. But the reason he gave was that, having come from a carrier background, he understands what it takes to roll out a new phone, and especially one with an operating system nobody's used before. And he says, realistically, to get it out before Christmas, it just wouldn't have worked. You need to train store staff in how to position the device and use it. You need to sort out stock levels. You need to book your marketing. And he says there just isn't any time left.
I mean, if I was launching something of the size and importance of BlackBerry 10, I would time it so that I would, by my best guesstimate, it would come out 2 to 3 weeks before the next iPad launches.
Well, that's it. Now, the other thing he said is you're just launching before Christmas, everybody's going to be trying. So you're competing with a lot of noise. Now, of course, what he didn't say, but what we all know, is that the new iPhone is expected to be announced around September, October, right?
October.
So do you really want to launch BlackBerry 10 in the same month window as Apple announcing the new iPhone? You'd just be completely rained out.
Which is why you kind of want to slot into the. I mean, Apple have got this beautiful sort of 6 month iPad, iPhone. So that's why I'm saying you want to get your launch in 2 to 3 weeks before the iPad. You can do you get 2 weeks of probably solid good coverage. If you do it 3 weeks before the iPad launch, because the week leading up to an iPad launch, everybody just talks about what they think is going to be in the new iPad.
Exactly.
So you've got 2 weeks of good, solid press coverage on your new operating system and your new phone. You're not competing with another phone which is about to be launched.
Yes.
What you're competing with is is probably the Android phones.
Yes.
And maybe the Windows phones, but you're not competing with Apple.
No.
You're right. I would say the Galaxy S3 was masterful timing from Samsung, launching it late May. No other major phones being launched at that point. The Lumia 900 about to be launched, but really not representing competition for the Galaxy S3. And it came 2 months after the iPad, the new iPad, which was a rather disappointing new iPad in terms of what new it delivered.
Not sure I agree with that, but possibly.
A viewpoint.
It did come a few weeks before Google I.O., where they announced something that wouldn't make you want an S3 and would make you want an older device because it gets vanilla Jelly Bean, which is amazing.
The S3 now has Jelly Bean.
Already?
Yep.
There's no way. You could ROM it on Jelly Bean, but there's no way Samsung has pushed that through Vodacom already. I'd be very surprised if it updates automatically.
I had a notice to say that an update is available for your phone.
Yeah.
You won't be able to use the phone while it is being updated.
Let me see if it's Jelly Bean, though. I'm very surprised because they just haven't done it yet. But we'll know in a moment.
Have a look and see.
Anyway, we're still talking about BlackBerry, though. Actually, let's do this. Software updates.
It's 4.04.
It'll be amazing if it... Jelly Bean's 4.1.
Okay, so we don't have Jelly Bean. We have ice cream sandwich.
Yes. Now you see that, and let's do this little digression quickly. That is the point. Is if you own a Samsung, an HTC, a Motorola, any of the other Android devices, you're missing out heavily. Google rolls it out straight to the Nexus device, while these guys spend time putting all of their own junk into the operating system, which then needs to be approved by the networks. So I think you'll be lucky if you see Jelly Bean on the S3 before sometime in 2013. I hope Samsung proves me wrong because it's awesome hardware. But
I think that the difference between having a vanilla Android device and having a manufacturer-specific device is that the manufacturers have a vested interest in not upgrading.
Well, that too, exactly.
They know that the people who have bought the S3 will want to buy the S4.
Yeah.
And if they can hold out on the Jelly Bean upgrade until they launch the new S4, and then they go, okay, well, cool, guys, you can have the S4. It's got all the latest versions of Android. Oh, by the way, we'll roll out the latest not even the latest version of Android, one back. So
case in point, Google Note, the Galaxy Note, still hasn't received Ice Cream Sandwich. No ICS on the Galaxy Note. It's now 2 behind. So...
yeah.
That's why you buy Nexus devices, kids. But back to BlackBerry, and I will, if I can get decent enough audio from the Frank Berlin interview, I'll insert it on the end of this episode. So keep listening after the closing jingle, and if you hear
a bit of crackling,
a little crackling, and then my voice or Frank's voice, then it's there. And if you don't, it's not.
We're very sorry.
We spoke about BlackBerry 10 as a product because there were two concerns there. The one is when it's being launched, and the other one, of course, is whether or not they can get developers behind it. Now, this is new architecture. It's based on QNX, which is what they built their tablet OS for the Playbook on. I have always said that tablet OS is one of the strongest operating systems out there. and I still think actually it's the best tablet operating system from an architectural perspective. It really is a work of art. It's amazing, and if they can pull it off on the phone, great. But they need to get developers behind it. So that's the problem, right? So they've got these BlackBerry Jam events that they've been holding around the world, and there's one in South Africa next week. And they said they've been very well attended and there's lots of interest. I expect there'll be a massive amount of interest in South Africa given the market share. 7 of the top 10 smartphones sold last month were still BlackBerries. So I did read a funny quote this week from one developer who said it would be cheaper to buy every one of his customers an iPhone than it would be to make them a BlackBerry app because it's such a pain in the ass to develop for the platform. But I'm hoping, and I haven't seen yet, that BlackBerry 10 will be a much better experience for developers.
I've played with BlackBerry 10 on a prototype, and it was a wonderful experience. I was dazzled by it.
Okay.
I was quite amazed by the keyboard functionality. I've never seen keyboard functionality like that on a virtual screen before. Ironically, the closest that any virtual keyboard the closest that any virtual keyboard has come to that for me has been the Nokia Lumia 900, which I think has a superb, accurate and predictive keyboard.
It really does.
The BlackBerry 10 takes it a few steps further. It feels like you have letters popping up in between the keys or words popping up in between the keys, and you simply flick them onto the screen as you're typing. It is so quick and intuitive after 2 minutes use that I think that will be a killer app on BlackBerry 10. Also, the BB10 Jam in Orlando at BlackBerry World in May was completely sold out in terms of developers wanting to get their teeth into it. So there is tremendous enthusiasm amongst those who are willing to acknowledge that BlackBerry has a role to play.
Now, you've been hands-on with BlackBerry 10. I haven't been that lucky. But I'm trying to roll video from The Verge at the moment. We're having a bit of YouTube fail over here.
Of course, tap on a message.
So if you're watching the video version of the podcast, you'll see that. And that's as close as I've gotten to BlackBerry 10. But I must say, on a purely superficial basis, it looks amazing. And what I love is the way the applications sort of slide away to reveal each other. Frank Bullon, when I spoke to him on the phone, he said the term they're trying to coin is always in. So you seamlessly move between applications instead of having to close one and go into another. Not all that different from where iOS and Android are moving towards, but they still are challenged in that department, whereas BlackBerry seems to have sorted that out architecturally. But the proof will be in the pudding, and that's why it's such a pivotal thing. It's make or break. BlackBerry 10 has to work, or I don't know if we'll be talking about BlackBerry this time next year, unless we're kind of doing an obituary.
Or unless Apple really disappoints the market with a new iPhone.
Well, we kind of know what's coming, and it looks pretty amazing. iOS 6 is something else.
But there's one thing that the market didn't see coming. Apparently, your charger on your old iPhones won't work on the new iPhone.
How on earth is that going to stop people from getting one?
I mean, it's a bloody pain in the butt.
It may be a pain in the butt, but I think it's. I think people are taking
a cheap adapter.
People are taking Apple to task for this. Are actually, I think, fundamentally misguided. I mean, Apple have kept the dock connector.
Did you just call Arthur misguided?
Yes. No, I didn't say he was misguided. I said if he believes.
No, I'm joking. Arthur didn't say it was a bad decision. He just said it was happening.
Yeah.
I just said it's idiotic. I didn't say there's anything wrong with it.
I mean, Apple have kept the same dock connector, basic dock connector, since the original iPod.
Yeah.
38-pin dock connector.
Yeah.
They did change the charging mechanism, which meant that you couldn't use FireWire. There have been stages at which you found that older versions of docks or chargers or whatever wouldn't work with newer devices. So, like, you would buy an FM transmitter for your car, and you'd drop in your new iPhone, and they went, "Sorry, this isn't supported." So it won't charge through that, and they made small changes through the thing. But I mean, we're talking 10 years?
Yeah.
That they've kept the same basic connector, and I mean.
Look,
so what's to say it's misguided to change it after 10 years. I mean, for God's sake, USB was barely around 10 years ago.
From a customer perspective, I'm going, that's fine. And you either trust them to make the right decision when they develop the product or not. But they're thinking this thing takes up a hell of a lot of space. It's really old technology now. We've kept it going for as long as we can. It's time to change.
Yeah.
Fair enough. They'll probably... So case in point, I'm using the new MacBook Pro 15-inch with Retina Display at the moment. Most remarkable piece of hardware I've ever seen. And you can back it up with the stats, right? It is quite simply the best computer ever made. And there's no room for argument. From a design perspective, from a hardware perspective, from an everything perspective, it's the finest PC ever developed. But they changed the MagSafe adapter, right? So as somebody who's been using MacBooks for a while, I've got a pile of these things. And I'm going, I can't use them. But they've launched an adapter as well. So the day this thing shipped, an adapter was available. Even in South Africa, where we get ripped off for accessories, it was 100 Rand, and you can use your old adapter again, right? So, not the biggest problem, so long as you compensate for it, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, the trick is that if you spend a fair amount of money on a Bose or a fairly high-end dock, and you're left not being able to plug your new device into it, it is a bit of a pain in the ass.
Fair enough.
But you know what? If you spend that kind of money on a dock, I'm very sorry for you.
Yeah, true. All right, you know what? I think it's time to talk about Jelly Bean, but let's take a short break and talk about our sponsors of the ZA Tech Show. Sharp has been on the show for a few weeks now, and they've just launched their amazing new Sharp Interactive LED in South Africa. So if you go to sharpinteractive.co.za, you can find out more about this device. You can also enter a competition to win one of a few 40-inch televisions that they're giving away. Now, the amazing thing about the Sharp Interactive LED is it's really an interactive whiteboard, right? So it's a massive screen about the size of a regular whiteboard that you can write on. You can do anything you can do on a whiteboard, except unlike a whiteboard, you can save those drawings and you can email them off to people. But that's not all. You can pull up images on the screen. So, for example, you can pull up wireframes for an app that you're developing. You can annotate on the screen, take notes. You can even video conference. So it's got a camera attached, or the model that we're reviewing has its camera attached. You can video conference with somebody who can't make it to the meeting. You can have them on your whiteboard as well. It's really got amazing functionality. It's really cool. I wish we had them at my company, because we've got whiteboards all over the place. And then you know what happens after a meeting, right? Take out your phone and take pictures of the whiteboard, because there's no way to get the image off any other way. So check it out. If you're in any sort of production environment, or just about any other environment, it makes sense. And you can find out more at sharpinteractive.co.za. And we are very grateful to them for supporting the ZA Tech Show and making what we do possible at sharpinteractive.co.za. And now, back to the show.
I just wanted to, sorry, Simon,
yes.
I know this is regressing, but I just wanted to point out one small fact that we left out of this whole debate about docking stations and things like that.
Yeah.
Is the push by Apple to mainstream AirPlay is going to make all docks obsolete anyway. Because why would you plug your thing in?
Well, to charge it.
Okay, yes. But why would you? I mean, you can have a separate charging station for that.
Maybe Apple will introduce inductive charging with.
I mean, come on. I mean, have you ever seen a dock which actually looked pretty?
No,
they all have these things. I always feel like if I bash the iPhone the wrong way, it's going to rip out in my hand and destroy the whole thing. And none of them feel stable, and some of the really nice high-end ones look even worse. I mean, the point is that Apple are probably going, you know what, screw this. People must use AirPlay to stream their music. You know, I mean, it's as simple as that. Why are you perching this thing on and you're having to fiddle with the screen while it's locked into a specific position when you could just be holding it in your hand and streaming the bloody music anyway?
So I tend to agree, but the point is with chargers, Apple has consistently remained outside of the family of micro USB unity across the world, which to me has been one of the great boons, having one charger sitting there plugged in to a wall socket and being able to bring almost any device along and plug it in. And even the Motorola Zoom, the new Motorola Zoom tablet, suddenly has a micro USB. It's the first of the mainstream tablets that you can charge via micro USB. And I was so delighted when I was reviewing that I didn't have to also unwrap all the plugs and cables. And I know that it's a different situation, having different devices coming through for review all the time. But you have many families that have numerous devices that need charging. And you find in a family, people are always running around looking for the right charger for if they have an iPhone and a BlackBerry, for example. What a pleasure if every single device could charge on the same charger.
Well, every single device except Apple's can.
Exactly.
Yeah, can't disagree with you there, Arthur. Absolutely, I'm in the same court.
But the iPhone has other challenges, right? I mean, the original iPhone was uncontested in the market. There was nothing like it. There was nothing even close to it. It revolutionized smartphones. And the competition's been heating up since then. Now you've got a Windows Phone, which according to some analysts is gaining ground and will rise to match iOS in the market in terms of market share. You've got BlackBerry 10, which is either going to sink its holding company or be a comeback for BlackBerry and Research in Motion and fill some part of the market, who knows how much. But more importantly, you've got the world's most sophisticated operating system now, hands down, which is Jelly Bean, right? And it's in the market a few months before the new iPhone. And I'm somebody who's been using the iPhone almost since day one, and I'm looking at Jelly Bean and going, it beats the pants off iOS at the moment. It really is the most remarkable mobile experience I've ever had. And I have no doubt that iOS 6 will either match or beat it. But for now, this is what you want, right? You want a Galaxy Nexus running Jelly Bean. It's fast. They've got this new VSync technology, triple graphics buffering. It's absolutely amazing how quickly you get around menus and applications. The new notification system rocks. I mean, Android really nailed notifications on a mobile device. Apple had to copy them for its notifications in iOS. They've made them even better now, so you can swipe away your notifications once you've seen them. And then there's Google Now, which is really amazing me. So it picks up your location and other information that it starts to learn about you and starts populating these cards that you can fly through that start to tell you about meetings coming up, for example. It starts to work out after a few days what time you're going to commute to work. It brings up a card with the traffic on your way to work and the best route. If you Google for a flight on your Android device, it'll peg that flight to Google Now and it'll start bringing in departure and arrival information about that flight automatically. The whole package in Jelly Bean is amazing. And I've been one of the people who for the longest time has been saying that Android's too fragmented, that it has severe problems, etc., etc. But if you had any doubts about Android before, the vanilla Jelly Bean experience should reverse most of them. It absolutely is amazing. And I think that's going to be Apple's biggest challenge when the new iPhone comes out, apart from what adapter it has and how big the screen is and all the rest of it. It really is on like Donkey Kong between Google and Apple, right?
And that's great.
Yeah.
I mean, I have to say that, I mean, I'm sort of due for an upgrade in a few years, probably about 9 months' time, depending on whether I stay with my current service provider or not. So either 6 or 9 months' time. And I'm sitting here going, well, I'm going to have to think hard. You know, at one stage I'm thoroughly embedded into the Apple ecosystem. I've got a lot of apps and stuff like that on my iPhone.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, a lot of these Android devices are looking really, really interesting. So
yeah. Well, once again, as we've said earlier on the show, you really want to go for the vanilla Android experience. You really don't want HTC's Sense or Samsung's TouchWiz or whatever Motorola has. It's just not worth it. The vanilla Android experience is better.
The hope would be that in order to roll it out faster because of market demand, that they will roll out a more vanilla version. It won't be entirely vanilla, but that's certainly the hope. But it would be silly of them not to roll it out sooner rather than later, because that'll give them that much more head start over the new iPhone. Just pass your iPhone here for a moment, and compare that screen. If I may switch it on for a second.
That's the funny thing. The iPhone 4 screen, which is now aging gracefully, is still demonstrably better than the pen-tile displays.
But if you compare those two screens, it's become positively pokey. And the HTC One X is
not at all.
Absolutely.
No, I'm sorry, Arthur.
You try and type on the virtual keyboard.
If you were holding a One X next to you, you might have had a point. The pen-tile display, you see pixelation. You just do. It's a little bit brighter in terms of its colors.
Okay.
It's too big in terms of its
Not
size.
Spider-Man 3D wallpaper.
Okay, hold it in one hand for me. Now touch the opposite corner from your thumb, top opposite, without your other hand,
I can't
Arthur.
tell my left from my right.
So you can't use it with one screen, but the iPhone's pokey.
Yeah,
with one hand.
Absolutely. But who does that?
Who uses a phone with one hand? Me, all the time, every day.
Who types email with one hand?
Me.
You type. No wonder there's so many damn typos in your.
There's never any typos.
Emails.
Not only did they invent the keyboard, they had the best keyboard in the market until Jelly Bean came out. Now there's a real competitor.
I've always found the iPhone keyboard a horrible thing to type on. And some geniuses...
Arthur, you've got something against Apple. I don't know what it is.
I love Apple.
Why do you hate the iPhone so much?
The MacBook Air, to me, is the most delightful working machine I've ever had. Why I tend to play devil's advocate with the iPhone is because people tend to believe in it as opposed to look at it for what it has to offer.
Hey.
And the average person typing an email on an iPhone makes so many more errors than the average person typing it on a BlackBerry, for example.
Hardware keyboard from the pre-Jurassic.
I'd love to see real tests, real benchmarks done on speed of typing, not guys who are.
Can we do
really
one right now? No. Let's do one right now. Okay. Here's what we're gonna do.
Okay.
Ben, you're gonna say you're gonna start speaking. I'm gonna type what you say, and so is Arthur, and we're gonna see who finishes first, and then who has the highest accuracy. So I've got a microphone in my face, but I'm ready when you are.
Okay, I'm reading from the headlines of the Guardian's website.
Okay, and go.
Regime says
Foster.
Weapons would be used in case of foreign attack, not against its own people.
Not against its own people. Done.
Jeez.
I'm done, Arthur.
Let's see how accurate that is.
I missed the second word because Ben stuttered it. How far are you?
Weapons would be used. Regime says weapons would be
Yes,
used.
I missed
case
says.
of foreign attacks. In case of foreign attacks.
How
Simon,
far are you,
I was about
Arthur?
to say,
How far? Okay, let's do it again.
Okay.
I know this is boring for you, dear listener, but please bear with us because Ben stuffed up the
I have
first
to
one.
say, this isn't a test of
No.
the iPhone's capabilities.
You said
It's a
people could
test.
type faster on a BlackBerry.
It's a test against someone who's a brilliant typist.
Oh, whatever.
Okay,
But
here we go.
Quick sentence and fast this time.
Worst rains in 60 years prompts questions over basic infrastructure.
Prompt questions. I made a typo. Over infrastructure.
basic
Done.
infrastructure.
Done. I'm making one correction. Still done. I've got
was
one
done, I'll make one
capitalization I was trying to correct. There you go.
Okay.
Worst rains in 60 years prompt questions over basic infrastructure. Done a minute before you.
Rains in 60 years prompts questions.
The champ
over
is here!
Capital B.
Whatever.
Okay.
Whatever.
I hereby declare Simon Dingle the champion. But what I was really trying to say is I'd like to see a benchmark test. That's not a benchmark. That's benchmarking against the best. You need to have like 100 average users.
For anyone who hasn't met me and Arthur in real life, this is one of our favorite pastimes, pretending to argue over things we mostly agree on.
And Simon was using his iPhone there, not the Nexus.
Yeah, I carry them both around. But, I've just been espousing the amazingness of Jelly Bean. But I can still say the iPhone is still the smartphone to bench them all against that invented this market.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I would say that once the HTCs and the Samsungs are upgraded, and if they're upgraded in good time before October, I think they're going to really capture the imagination of the market well ahead of the new iPhone coming out. And it'll be interesting to see if Apple changes their marketing strategy in any way by leaking advanced information to stop people from migrating because of being enticed by Jelly Bean.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I'm also hoping that BlackBerry 10 really is a success. We need another competitor in the market. We need a strong BlackBerry. We need a non-American company, even if they are really close geographically, to take it to these guys because I'm just so tired of patent wars and American media setting the tone for this stuff. And I've got nothing against the US, got nothing against US companies. I just think it's healthy for the market to have some other competitors. Nokia used to be that. It's now, for all intent and purpose, an American company itself. They would hate me to say that, but it really is the way they're acting.
No doubt about it.
Yep. Anyway.
Which takes us to Chinese phone makers.
Yeah, that. I must say, though, that Aspire P1, we were both at the launch, Arthur.
Yes.
The Huawei device. We spoke about it briefly the last time I was on the show, but quite impressive.
Quite dazzling. And I have to say that one of the phones that impressed me the most over the past year that hasn't captured the imagination of anybody was the Motorola Razr, the new Razr, which was razor thin. I loved that phone.
Me too.
But it kind of fell behind and it fell through the cracks and disappeared in a sense. And the Ascend P1 from Huawei is the first phone to capture that same kind of sense of true thinness. I know the Galaxy S3 and to some extent the HTC One X are also thin. I love the Samsung Galaxy S3 because it's so thin it slips almost invisibly into the pocket. And the Ascend also has that kind of effect with a slightly smaller form factor. It doesn't feel as bulky height and width wise, but it's also that thin feel that you get a sense of this is something truly sleek.
Absolutely. I found though this is 4.3 inches I think on the Galaxy Nexus. That seems to be the limit for me of screen size before it gets too big. You find yourself readjusting your grip to the front of your fingers and then you can hit the top sort of opposite corner. But when you get to 4.5, 4.7 inches, it gets too big. But the Huawei P1 somehow manages to pull it off.
Yeah.
It's a really good design.
I was born perhaps 2 years too early, Simon. I still need to hold the phone in one hand and type with the other, even if I use the iPhone.
Hold one hand and type with the same hand.
I was born too long ago for that, you see. As I said, 2 years before you, so I can't do that.
And I was the 1 year before Simon, so I'm also...
Jeez, guys. All right.
Let's talk about the Chinese manufacturers for a moment.
I want to do that. I really do. But I want to take a quick break before we do. I want to talk about them. I want to talk about Marissa Mayer. I want to get more into your tablets. But before we go there, I just want to mention our sponsors of the ZA Tech Show, our other sponsors. And that's Snapdragon by Qualcomm, the all-in-one mobile processor. Now, of course, all of these phones we're talking about, virtually all of them, are running Qualcomm processors, right? The Snapdragon specifically is the architecture that's really taken smartphones to where they are today. So if you're using a BlackBerry, for example, just about all of Samsung's phones are running Qualcomm processors. Now, to display what you can do with Qualcomm processors and why the Snapdragon is so amazing and the variety of different devices you'll find it in, we're giving away 12 smartphones and tablets on the ZA Tech Show. So if you go to zatechshow.co.za/Snapdragon, that's zatechshow.co.za/Snapdragon, you can enter a competition to win one of those 12 tablets or smartphones. All you have to do is solve a puzzle, which I must admit is a little bit challenging, but it's also fun. It's one of those sliding puzzle thingies. So go to the website, enter the competition, and we'll be announcing the winners as we receive those names from the folk at Snapdragon, because we don't have control over that micro site. But as soon as we know who the winners are, we'll tell you, or you can find out on the site. So we are very grateful to Snapdragon and Qualcomm for supporting the ZA Tech Show, and that website again is zatechshow.co.za/Snapdragon.
Can I mention that it's also on the HTC One X, and I watched a demo by the Qualcomm people using the HTC One X to demonstrate the Wi-Fi and dual view capabilities that Snapdragon enables in the phone. And the guys were basically playing a video game off the HTC One X, but transmitting it onto a high-definition screen. And you might as well have been watching a high-definition movie. It was so dazzling.
I'd say games on the same level as a PS2 on the big screen.
One certainly got that sense.
Yeah, it was quite a powerful display of what can be done. And of course, you could push it even further than that. I suspect we're going to see some really sophisticated gaming coming out of these platforms eventually.
Yeah, and it's exciting to see people like Qualcomm actually driving the gaming side of things as well, and understanding that for the consumer to ultimately experience the capabilities of the platform, in general, they have to provide them with an experience they can relate to up front. So it's good to see that kind of R&D investment going into a consumer experience.
Yeah. And the One X is just raw power. It's my second favorite Android device next to the Galaxy Nexus. Galaxy Nexus is dual core, doesn't have any of the super beefy hardware of the One X or the S3. But just having Jelly Bean on such a nice platform, plus it's got the NFC and all the other little bits and pieces that make Jelly Bean interesting. So it's my favorite at the moment. It's a Samsung device, but they don't control the updates, luckily. Unless you have the version of it where they do. Anyway,
sorry for you.
Let's talk about Marissa Mayer, I think, since we're kind of segueing out of Google anyway. and the fact that she's now the new CEO of Yahoo. I don't think we can say too much about it that hasn't been said already by media elsewhere. I was very surprised when I saw the announcement. She, of course, is a Google stalwart. She was one of the first 5 or 10 employees at
20.
Number 20. Okay. At Google, she was their first female engineer. If you've read books like In the Plex, for example, about Google, she's quite a key figure in their history. There's some disputes over how well liked she is within the company. For example, Larry Page, when he assembled this group of 5 sort of trusted Googlers that advise him, she wasn't one of them, which makes one wonder what the real reasons were for her leaving. But you usually find that most of this is just speculation and BS. Yeah. It was probably a good offer and an exciting challenge for her to turn Yahoo around. She clearly must be capable. As bad a state as Yahoo is in at the moment, it's still a profitable company, and it still has a board of directors who aren't going to let an idiot take over. So.
Yeah. I mean, the one thing which hasn't been mentioned, which I find, which I kind of sort of came to me, is that there's a part of Google which doesn't want Yahoo to go bust. You know, there may be competition, but can you imagine how Google, as a dominant sort of ad sales network, doesn't want one of their key competitors to go bust, because then they suddenly find themselves in a very dominant position in the marketplace and open up to all kinds of sort of antitrust sort of investigations, which may put a real sort of block on future acquisitions and future strategies, specifically acquisitions that they might want to make. They find themselves at the mercy of the Securities and Exchange Commission. I think does all the
and they have been getting quite close to more antitrust
they're
proceedings.
Skirting the thing already, and if Yahoo has suddenly had to disappear, they really would be like this. Have this huge target painted on their backs, and I mean it's very similar to what happened with Microsoft and Apple in sort of the late 90s, where
Microsoft bailed out Apple.
Gave Apple $150 million to basically keep the company paying, keep the doors open, and that really saved Apple in the long run. I mean, Apple would have gone bust without that money, and with Steve Jobs at the helm. So
they probably wouldn't have acquired Next. You always wonder what the unspoken clauses were to these agreements. Well, maybe Bill Gates said, "Here's $150 million. Buy Next and get Steve back."
No, $150 million came in after Steve returned.
Oh, it was after. You're right.
After Steve returned, Steve announced it.
Yes, actually, you're right. Sorry, I stand corrected.
Very similar time to the iMac announcement that they made that announcement, and part of the deal was that Microsoft would continue to supply Office for Mac for a certain amount of time.
I remember that.
And basically, people were going, "Why is Microsoft giving everything to Apple, and Apple's not doing anything in return, really?" And the simple fact of the matter is that Microsoft couldn't afford for Apple to go bust, because Apple was their plausible deniability. Yeah. They were saying, "There's not a monopoly. There's Apple. Look, there's Apple. They're our competition."
And that needs to continue, even though Apple now is the gorilla in the market.
Exactly. And so I think the Yahoo Google thing, I don't think Google don't really care how well Yahoo do, but the last thing they want to happen is that Yahoo goes out of business, because then they suddenly are the Standard Oil of the internet, and there's nobody up and thing. And I think,
I think it's taking it a bit far to say that Marissa Mayer was deployed by Google.
No. I'm not even
but there is a conspiracy theory to that effect.
There's some juicy conspiracy theories to be had.
Google did say, take over there because we need them. We need a nemesis.
I wouldn't be surprised
Everyone needs a nemesis.
When Marissa went to Sergey or to Larry and said, "Look, this is what I'm going to do," they said, "Go with our blessing."
Yeah, I suppose.
I'm sure they didn't. I'm pretty sure it wasn't. Security, please come escort Marissa out of the building.
I think an important thing to bear in mind is search market share, because she must have looked at those numbers as well. Google for June 2012 Comscore's data shows had 66.8% market share, a fraction over 2/3 of global search. Sorry, that's US search. 66.8% of US search. Microsoft had 15.6% and Yahoo had 13%. And the Yahoo Microsoft Access together had 28.6%. which is not shabby. If it wasn't for the fact that Google was just so dominant and had 66%, you'd look at that and say, hey, 28% market share is pretty good.
Well, there's some corralling happening there as well, isn't there? Because there's Yahoo, there's Microsoft, there's a lot of companies. I suppose you could say Apple, although I doubt they would partner with any of these guys, but who have it in for Google.
No doubt.
Google really is starting to stand on its own in the market against a lot of very formidable enemies.
I just think that if Yahoo were truly clear, if Marissa Mayer, maybe it's just my naivety saying, take Flickr, fix Flickr, and turn that into whatever you need Yahoo to be. Because the Flickr used to be the greatest thing since sliced bread, and it is still pretty awesome. Although it's it's getting quite dated. But there's a lot of stuff underlying Flickr, which really is the core of social networking today. And you could quite easily use Flickr as sort of the core engine of a very, very sophisticated, quite clever social networking site.
Absolutely.
Which is able to which has a brand in the market already and is able to differentiate itself from other players.
Yeah. All right. Listen, it's 10 minutes before we generally end the show, and I think our picks of the week are going to take a while because Arthur's got 85.
Show and tell.
So maybe we should get into that. This is the part of the show where we pick our favorite technologies of the week and basically give them more promotion than they deserve. But, you might find out about an interesting app or something else worth having. I think we need to start with you, Arthur. Because you seem to be warming up for quite a marathon session over there.
Number 3. At number 3, we have a combination of a high-end and a low-end phone. This is actually the low-end BlackBerry on the market right now. The new BlackBerry Curve 9320.
It's great value for money.
Which is superb value for money. And this is the phone that's going to keep BlackBerry's share of the youth market in South Africa and possibly across Africa. In fact, this is a Africa killer, you could almost call it, and I'll come back to it in a moment. This is the ZTE S505, which is the cheapest phone in South Africa right now and possibly in the world. It's essentially a $7 phone. I don't think anyone has made a $7 phone before. Now, these two phones have got one thing in common. If you look at the app that appears there, it might not look like anything, but if you click
FM
on
radio.
FM radio. Look at the only app, the single app on this phone.
FM radio.
FM radio. These two phones have got one thing in common, which is FM radio, which is the most commonly used additional feature on a phone, aside from phone and messaging, across all of Africa. So that's what was missing in the BlackBerry offering in terms of South Africa as well as the rest of the emerging markets. And this phone is really designed to maintain that hold.
What's the cash price again?
Market. I forget offhand what the price is.
The previous, its predecessor, at one stage you could get for less than 2,000 Rand. I think it was about 1.8.
As low as 1,600 Rand, depending on the deals.
So that'll probably hover around there as well.
Probably around 1,100 Rand.
And next to nothing on contract.
And on contract, you'll probably get it for as little as 89 Rand a month.
And that'll include your unlimited BES deal.
Exactly. The funny thing with this phone is that when it was announced that it had FM radio, you could hear the sniggers across Twitter. Wow, BlackBerry discovers FM radio, but it was a stroke of genius. And
iPhone doesn't have it. None of the Android phones have FM radio.
And none of the other BlackBerry phones have it. The Samsung Galaxy S3 has it, incidentally. But the point about it is that it's not streaming radio. It's the device itself is actually a radio. And it doesn't look bad if you look at it on this. In fact, it looks better on this phone than it does on this one. And where that little $6 phone has the advantage is that you don't need speakers. You've got to plug this into earphones or speakers.
So I have somebody who works for me, and she needed a new phone, and she asked me to get her a phone with the longest battery life. So I went along and I looked at these sort of 100 Rand phones, and this ZTE phone goes for 80 Rand cash at the place I was shopping at.
And you should have gone to Pick and Pay, 50 Rand.
Yeah, well, I spent another 20 Rand and I spent another 40 or 50 Rand and I got a Nokia that was about 120 Rand. The reason I did that is because I spoke to the lady at the store, and she had used both, and she said the ZTE's battery didn't last nearly as long as the Nokia's, and she said also if you need to replace the battery, it's not as easy to get hold of a replacement as it is for the Nokia. So I thought, okay, for the extra battery life and support, I'll pay 120 Rand, and I got this lady who worked for me the Nokia, which she was very pleased with. So there you go. And you know how many geeks I know who carry around a feature phone with a spare SIM in it, prepaid SIM, for emergencies, because some of them will literally last you the better part of a month.
Dang, I should have bought my Nokia 6310i, which still works and lasts a week.
John Tyler still uses the phone, the feature phone as his main phone.
Yeah, but he really does.
But John is the uber under geek, you might almost call it.
Well, one journalist I spoke to carries an iPod Touch, which does everything the iPhone does except phone, unless you're using Skype or something, and costs a fraction of what the iPhone does, like a third of what the iPhone does. And then he carries around a cheap feature phone. He's American. I think he said he paid $30 for his feature phone, and he gets like unlimited calls on it, and he carries around both. Why not? Anyway. Okay, next up.
Number two. Number two is this device called the Gobi from Kalahari.net, and if you feel it, Ben, you'll see it's very robust. Now this is the second generation. The first generation was a very plasticky device that the moment I picked up, I felt this is cheap and nasty, and I was almost offended. It was so cheap and nasty for about 900 Rand. This is, I think, 899 Rand, but it comes with 160 Rand ebook voucher. I think so did the previous one, but this suddenly feels like value. And if you hold it up alongside the Kindle,
or hold them up together first, I suppose.
Yeah, that's the
similar size.
That's the Kindle Touch, and that's the Gobi. Which way do I hold it up? That way or that way?
Doesn't matter.
So
most people listen to audio.
They're the same size.
98% of our audience is audio.
The same form factor, and with all kinds of functionality. The Gobi can also play music, and
so can the Kindle.
Well, it's not quite up to the Kindle's quality yet, but what it shows. I'll pass that to you.
Yeah, the screen isn't. Oh, the screen's terrible.
The screen's not great. It doesn't compare to the Kindle. But what it shows
is
that. No, it's not.
It's not. Oh, so then, what's the battery life like?
The battery life's pretty good.
Okay.
Does it compare to not as good as the Kindle, but it's getting there.
So what is it using if it's not using e-ink?
It's
LCD probably.
It's a basic LCD screen.
Okay.
So it's not the kind of experience you get on the Kindle.
It's not bad.
It's not terrible. That's the whole point about it. It's not like reading on a reflective screen, which is a strain on the eyes. So the point about it is that it shows an evolution in Kalahari's approach to developing ebook readers in China and bringing them in. The first one, as I said, was an attempt to almost get a foothold in the market, and it felt like they were almost conning the market, but it was actually an experiment. They only brought in a few hundred, and where they did con the market was to claim that it was a big success because they sold all the units they brought in, but they didn't bring in many. But this one feels like it's a serious attempt to enter the market, and it suggests that each successive version is going to be substantially better, and they will approach the Kindle in quality, but where they have won over the Kindle is that they're not relying on someone like Amazon as their source. They can source it directly and bring it in at lower cost over time. And where I see the real potential of that particular device is as a textbook reader. And if they're selling it at 900 Rand minus 160, so 640, they're probably bringing it in for about 300 Rand. In bulk, if you were to supply that kind of device to the education department, you could do it probably at 150 Rand a unit. Imagine what that can do for the textbook crisis. So that's my excitement about it, where it is right now, but also where it signals the market is going in terms of locally evolved e-readers.
Definitely.
So that's why it's my number two, not because it's the greatest gadget in the market, but because of what it represents.
Right.
But what is one of the great gadgets on the market?
Yes.
Is my number one pick of the week. And that is
the Samsung Slate.
A Windows 8 tablet masquerading as the Samsung Slate Series 7. Or is that the other way around? It's essentially an 11.6 inch screen. In the dock, It provides you with a range of ports that go into the dock for Ethernet, for USB, and the like. On the device itself, if you take it out of the dock, which I'll do right now,
yeah,
and I shall pass it over to the Quizmaster.
She's heavy.
It's heavy, but remember, it's a slate PC.
Yeah.
It's not designed as a tablet. What it shows is what a tablet would look like and how it would function. So you press the Microsoft button at the bottom to flip between the tablet interface and
it's missing.
The good old Windows 7 interface.
The pull's missing. It seems to have glitched out. Let me try switch orientation. No. Anyway, doesn't matter.
I may have pressed the lock button on the side.
No.
Under the power button.
No. Anyway, it doesn't matter. As you said, it's just a look at what's to come.
As a slate PC, you would get it with a wireless keyboard, and you could use it as a desktop machine in the same way you might use, for example, a MacBook Air 11.6 inch device. Actually, you wouldn't, but you could. You could use it as a laptop replacement, and then slip it out of the dock. There's the dock. It looks like a Apple TV device, actually, and very, very sleek and neat to carry around with you, and quite a functional dock as well, with its HDMI port, USB port, and Ethernet port, and headphone jack. But by itself, it also has all that functionality. It has micro USB. It has an SD card slot. It has almost anything you would want in a tablet in terms of ports and accessories. It also, and this is the most significant thing of all about it, is a PC. So if you're not comfortable with the tablet experience and you don't like the Windows 8 tablet interface, or you're tired of it, or you want to do something productive, you just dip down into the Windows 7 interface, and there you have your file and folder system, just as you do on Windows 7, ideally with a wireless keyboard or a keyboard that you plug into the dock. You can choose which way you want to go with that. This is the weather, by the way, which I find quite an amazing.
I think at the end of the day, I don't know where Windows RT is going, which doesn't have the desktop. But at the end of the day, it's all about price. If they can get those things to cheaper than your cheapest Ultrabook, then people will go for them. Otherwise, I just don't understand why. If you can get an Ultrabook for the same price or in the same ballpark, you'd probably get that instead.
Let me just emphasize, this is to show what a Windows tablet would look like. This device itself is not intended to be
but
Windows 8.
But it's not far off from what the surfaces will look like, the top-end Surface.
But let's take a Samsung Galaxy Tab with Windows 8. Because eventually all the other manufacturers will also make them. And let's say they bring it in 11 or 10-inch format and 7-inch format, and they have Windows 8 on it, and you have this interface which is very neat, very slick. It's incredibly fast and responsive. Amazingly so, and it looks good. But when you want to do something productive, when you want to work on a spreadsheet or on a Word document or anything in Office, for that matter, you then dip down into your Windows interface, into the desktop basically, and in the desktop you have your file and folder management system.
Yeah.
So you have the best of both worlds, and that's what I especially miss in the tablet world, is that I don't have that file and folder management. In fact, even on the MacBook Air, I miss a decent folder management system.
Oh, okay.
I assure you.
Finder works just fine, but anyway.
Finder works fine. Finder is a pain in the butt.
Yeah, it depends what you're used to. If you're used to Finder, then Windows Explorer.
But a year later, you can no longer pull that used to excuse on me, because I've been using it for a year and I still miss a decent folder management system.
I miss nothing about Windows File Explorer, but each to their own. All right, thanks, Arthur, for those elaborate pickings. Good stuff as always. Ben, what's your pick of the week?
The first pick is a thing which I came across a while ago, but I don't know why I didn't pick it. It's a website called Coursera, and it is a site which offers free online university courses. So they have teamed up with 16 universities, including Stanford, University of Pennsylvania, University of California, San Francisco, Toronto, Caltech, Princeton, Johns Hopkins, Edinburgh, Illinois, Georgia, and a few other ones. And they offer courses like from biology and life sciences, computer science, programming and software engineering, economics and finance, humanities, social science, education, a huge one. And I don't think they mark the actual coursework, because that might be a little bit difficult. But they hand out assignments, and some of the courses you get a certificate if you complete.
Well, this is a revolution in education, and it started out as this sort of experiment by Stanford, but it's kind of being validated by Duke and all these other universities jumping on board. So this is the future of college education. It absolutely is.
So this is Coursera.org. I'm signed up for one course from the University of Michigan, run by Eric Rabkin, who is
I can't tell you how excited I am about this stuff.
Who's professor of English at Michigan University, and it is fantasy and science fiction, the human mind, our modern world. So
there are so many great courses. Everybody needs to go. I get so excited I can't contain myself, right? Because if you think about it from an intention perspective, kids traditionally went to university because their parents told them to. Okay? No other reason. There were one or two exceptional little prodigies who went because they really cared about something. This form of education will inherently only attract people who are vehemently interested in gaining that knowledge. It is a completely different model of college education, and it's gonna bring the next generation of super academics to the fore.
I mean, and the thing is that what places like Khan Academy are doing for basic education, this is doing for tertiary education.
Oh man, if you live in Africa and this stuff doesn't excite you,
I mean, you
need to check your priorities.
You can access some of the greatest minds in the world,
some
of the best course material produced by some of the top academics in the world for free, for nothing. You can turn, even if you don't have a degree, you can turn yourself into a wunderkind.
You can study. I was checking out. You can do particle physics now. You can do quantum computing. Oh man, I wish I had more time. I would just take on 4.
What Ben has just highlighted is the answer to the question of, or the claim that broadband is a luxury that Africa can't afford. In fact, Africa can't afford not to have high-speed broadband to deliver this kind of content.
Absolutely.
I mean, you just look at this. I mean, this is the economics and finance one, okay? There's an introduction to finance, okay? There's a course from Johns Hopkins on the principles of obesity economics.
Wow.
There is a beginner's guide to irrational behavior
by Dan Ariely,
there is a whole thing on games. There's a course on game theory, a 7-week course on game theory. You know, a 6 to 8 week course on the principles of microeconomics. I mean, how can But I think the one thing, I mean, I said this already, is that what this is going to do is you're going to have a whole group of people out there who do not have enough money to go to university and get a degree, but will arrive at the workplace with more knowledge and a better understanding of the principles of your business than somebody who's got a master's degree, because they've gone through all this work and they've done the hard thing. And so suddenly what your educational background on your CV looks like could be completely different to what the real world, to your real world knowledge and your ability to perform your job.
That's amazing. Okay. Absolutely amazing.
I have
Thanks.
one other short little one,
okay,
which I found today when I was reading out Guardian headlines for you guys.
Yeah.
On the Guardian website, they have a little fake 8-bit game for the Olympic Games, where you can do the 100-meter sprint and the road race.
So this is on the Guardian website.
It's on the Guardian website. I'm trying to see. It was
on guys at the Guardian take themselves far too seriously.
So yeah, if you just look for the London 2012, they've got a could you be a medalist, and you can do swimming, cycling, running, and it's a little fun 8-bit retro video game, which is quite cute.
So I'm going to do 2 really quick picks. The first one I think Brett inadvertently picked last week, and I have alluded to it in the show. But it is the new MacBook Pro 15-inch with Retina Display. I'm trying one out at the moment. I really can't find anything bad to say about it. The battery lasts the better part of 10 hours. It's a quad-core Core i7. It's got half a gig of storage that's soldered directly onto the logic board. It's got 8 gigs of RAM that are also soldered directly onto the logic board. Its innards look like a work of art. Its fans are completely silent just about even when you're playing Diablo 3 on 2880 by 1800 resolution with everything set on high. It is God's own computer. It's absolutely amazing. And you can call me a fanboy as if that's some kind of weird insult. But I think anybody who says that this isn't the best PC ever made is smoking something or just a plain moron. Because, I mean, I've got a desktop computer at home, right, with one of the best graphics cards on the market, ATI, Radeon, whatever, with a quad-core processor with 8 gigs of RAM, and this thing benches it to hell. It's made that beast that I have at home redundant. It's like...
But how
really
much
can't articulate how amazing
how
it is.
much did your beast cost to put together?
Okay, there's a fraction of the cost. There's that. It's expensive. But, I was saying to a friend of mine, I remember the first generation of aluminium PowerBooks. Remember when they came out, Ben? I think it was when OS 10 first came out, right?
Yes, yeah.
And I remember a friend of mine who worked in graphic design, and he needed one of these things, and he could barely afford it. And he got a friend to bring him one back from the States, which he got a really good price and paid 48,000
I was
rand.
about to say it must have cost in the region of 40 grand.
Yeah, if he had tried to buy it in South Africa, I think he was looking at 65,000 rand.
Which was completely insane in those days.
Yeah.
How much a Mac laptop
So
cost.
this is not only the best Mac ever made, but the best computer available. And it costs, well, they start at 24,000 rand. I think this model's 30,000 rand.
Yeah.
It's damn expensive, but it's the same price as a Sony Vaio Z series.
Yes.
And it's the finest computer money can buy. So that's not too bad.
If you want the finest computer money can buy, that's what you get.
If you have all the money that money can buy, then that's the computer to buy.
There you go.
Oh.
Anyway.
There's enough alliteration there to kill a man.
It's very funny. All right, so there's that. The other thing I wanted to pick is something that nobody outside of Japan will get without a little bit of work, which is a free copy of a special edition of Donkey Kong that Nintendo is giving purchasers of the new 3DS with a bigger screen in Japan. If you buy the new 3DS, I think that's the deal. Either that or you just have to make a purchase from their online store. I might have my facts mixed up. But they're giving away these copies of a limited edition of Donkey Kong for the 3DS. That you can only get in Japan.
3DS Super XL.
Yeah, we'll find a way to get it here. But I love Donkey Kong, and it's the
wow.
old Donkey Kong. It's the original Donkey Kong
NES
in
Donkey
3D.
Kong. Oh,
Very cool.
that is way awesome.
Yeah.
There's
Anyway.
a website where you can play all the old black and white LCD Nintendo games.
What I wouldn't give to own some of those.
Yes.
Those old Nintendo, what do you call them?
I think my sister may still have a Donkey Kong lying around her house.
Donkey Kong 2 was amazing.
The orange Donkey Kong. I
The
think.
green Donkey Kong was Donkey Kong 2. That and... Oh, man, they were just those
they're
little
just such a
handheld
classic.
Nintendo monochrome
I mean, they must be worth a fortune
LCD.
nowadays. If you
They're
have
amazing.
a good collection, that must be worth a fair bit of money nowadays.
You find them on eBay every now and then. They don't go for too much, but man, I think you have to own them. If Nintendo started manufacturing them again, they would make an absolute fortune.
Yeah.
They would cost nothing to manufacture now. They would cost like
Well, they
$2
give
a
away
piece.
Games like that at
At Wimpy with
yeah,
a burger
with
for
a
kids.
burger meal. But the problem is those games are so terrible.
Yeah.
They're just so badly designed. That
Remember the parachute guys
yes.
running around catching
Yeah.
the people
Yes.
jumping? Oh, anyway. All right, I think it's time to wrap up the show. Nice picks, gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon.
Thank you for braving the traffic and the weather to be with us this evening.
Thank you for giving meaning to my toys.
And you do have enough of them, Arthur Goldstuck. At Art2G on Twitter from Worldwide Works. Where else can we find you, Arthur? Gadget.co.za.
Worldwideworks.com. This Wednesday, the Mobility 2012
That's
research
right.
project will be announced, and the headline findings will be on the Worldwide Works website. But also, you can follow me on Twitter, and the hashtag for the event will be #Mobility12. And I'm sure a few people will tweet from there. And I'll do a tweet note presentation afterwards with 10 of the key findings. From
And
the
I must
project.
apologize. I'm going to have to follow it that way. I've been summoned back to the Fairest Cape. So,
It's a
tough
tough
ride.
flight, but someone has to take it.
yeah, I'm sorry, Arthur, but I'll be watching remotely with great interest at those. And listen, if you've got any interest in business in South Africa, needless to say, it touches on technology because every business does. Otherwise, it's not a business in the 21st century. You need to be watching these results. These are key figures for our market. So if you're planning any strategy from a business perspective for this market going forward, you need to watch Arthur's results this week.
Thanks.
It's
Simon.
all about mobile. It's all about online. And if your business isn't about those things, then even if you're making socks, I think you need to be thinking about mobile and the internet.
Very true.
Anyway, great. Thanks, Arthur. Great as always. And Ben Kelly from the Mail and Guardian at Benedict Kelly on Twitter. What would you like to punt, Ben? That's our trade-off here. We let you punt whatever you want to our vast audience
I have nothing to punt
of mega geeks.
I'll save it up for the next time.
All right.
I'll save
Hit him up on Twitter.
Yeah.
Hold him to it.
Billy already told me on Twitter that when are you going to write something new on your blog? So
Yeah, some sharp tweets, and those make up for.
It's not the volume, it's the quality.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay, and that's it for the ZA Tech Show. I think we covered fair ground tonight. Episode 218, recorded on Monday, the 23rd of July, 2012. The ZA Tech Show is made possible by Snapdragon from Qualcomm, the all-in-one mobile processor. To win a tablet or smartphone, go to zatechshow.co.za/Snapdragon and buy Sharp. Check out the amazing new Sharp Interactive Whiteboard. I so badly want 5 of them at sharpinteractive.co.za, and you could win a TV, of course. Thanks to our sponsors. They allow us and enable us to do what we do. And a special happy birthday to Peter Ace, CEO of Vodacom, outgoing, who's been one of the show's biggest supporters, who's made the studio a possibility for us and many other things. We're very grateful to Peter and to Vodacom for their support of the ZA Tech Show, and we wish him a very happy birthday today. And,
Turns 50.
Yeah. He's got an excellent innings for somebody just turning 50.
I was like, only 50.
Being CEO of one of the biggest telecoms operators on the planet. Nice. Not a bad achievement.
And a cool cat.
And a genuinely nice guy.
Yeah.
All right, that's it. We're out. Goodbye.
Can I see that?
That was fun, guys.
Microsoft, no, the keyboard.